I'm pregnant. I meant to send the message to my mom, but with a slip of my hand, I sent it to my ex-boyfriend instead. By the time I realized, the recall window had passed. I watched the chat bubble pop up with typing, then disappear, over and over. Finally, 10 minutes later, he sent 2 words, "Is it mine? Steven, I want some soup dumplings, the meaty kind." In my dream, I mumbled and rolled over. After waiting what felt like forever, I rubbed my eyes, slowly waking up to the reality. Steven and I had broken up. A week ago, I yelled at him, "We're over. Don't ever come to find me again." And then, the guy really didn't come back even once. Without Steven, I had to do everything myself. Sleeping in meant no breakfast. I dragged myself up to get ready, catching a glimpse in the mirror of someone with crazy bed hair, yellowed skin. Whoa, who's this old lady? I mocked myself, only to realize a second later, that was me. The doorbell rang, and through the peephole, I saw a tall, handsome man, the kind you'd want to worship. But I couldn't because this guy was my ex, that jerk Steven. Showing up early in the morning? Must be to make up. Not so fast. If I don't give him a hard time, then what's the point of my week-long crying marathon? I swung the door open, leaned on the frame, and gave him a sideways glance. We broke up. What do you want? Steven looked at me, slightly surprised, then after a moment, squeezed out, "Joanna, what happened to you?" Listen to that. What does he mean, happened to you? So what if I have messy hair? So what if I'm in strawberry pajamas with one pant leg rolled up to the knee and the other cuffed? So what if I'm wearing ragged slippers and love crossing my legs? He's just standing there, hair perfectly styled, suit spotless, shoes shining. Damn, I lost this one. I pointed up on my toes, grabbing his tie, and snarled, "Oh, so now you're too good for me? You jerk." Steven glanced down at the hand yanking his tie, slightly frowning. "Joanna, you're the one who broke up with me." That serious look almost made me falter. Yeah right, being together takes 2, but breaking up is all on me? If I say break up, you'll just break up? His well-shaped brows furrowed slightly, staring at me deeply, a helpless sigh. Stop it. 2 words that made my heart sink. They came light as a feather but left me without any strength. He was always so composed and dignified, mature, and wise. I never saw him lose his cool. When we were together, I tried everything to see any special emotion flicker because of me on his handsome face. But no matter what drama I stirred up, he'd always respond with those same 2 words. Silence fell over me, and I walked into the bedroom, slamming the door. Not long after, came the knock. I shouted, loud enough to shake the window, "What do you want?" The voice outside paused, then said, "I'm here to pack my stuff." Then pack. You think Joanna is going to cry and beg you not to leave? Then open the door. Why open it? This is my room. A soft sigh outside. A week ago, it was also my room. Silence swallowed me again. This guy always leaves me speechless. Fuming, I flung the door open. He walked straight in, opened the closet, and began packing, barely glancing my way. But I couldn't help it, my eyes were glued to him. Why am I the only one feeling sad and hurt? I shot him an angry glare, marched to the liquor cabinet, and pulled out all his hidden good liquor. Without a word, I grabbed a bottle and started chugging. Half dazed, I seemed to see Steven rushing over to snatch the bottle back from me. See, he's finally losing it. I dodged left and right, refusing to give it up. But eventually, he caught me, pinned my hand against the wall. Finally, he wasn't so calm. "Joanna, do you even know what you're doing?" "Of course I do." I giggled, giving his handsome face a loud, boozy burp. Steven's face turned a shade of green, and I was even happier, dancing gleefully. "I'm doing it on purpose, Steven, what are you gonna do about it?" His face turned cold, seemingly angry. Not many can make this iceberg mad. "Joanna, that's me, I'm proud." Fueled by alcohol, acting crazy, I leaned in and bit his lip. A grown man with lips naturally tinted like lipstick, he deserved it. Stephen hissed in pain, working to pry my jaw open, voice low, "Joanna, are you part dog?" I exploded in rage, cursing, "After 2 years, you don't even know my zodiac sign? Or my birthday? Or our anniversary? You really are a jerk." As insults poured out, tears fell. Maybe fed up, the guy leaned down, silencing my cries with his lips. "Jerk, won't even let me cry." The next morning, my headache was pounding and beside me lay a naked handsome guy. If this had happened a week ago, no problem. But now? I sat there, lost in thought, struggling to remember who slept with who last night. But alcohol had blurred my memory, I couldn't recall. Not long after, he woke up too. Stephen rubbed his forehead, sat up, and looked at me, "Awake? Head hurt?" I scoffed, "Of course, try drinking as much as I did." He said nothing more, dressed, and quietly cleaned up the mess. Soon he returned from the kitchen with a cup of hot water and a box of medicine. "Open up." His voice, cold. Though begrudging, I complied. He slipped 2 pills into my mouth and offered the cup. I drank under his watchful hand. This guy, so stingy with words, won't say anything like "I'm sorry." If my head wasn't pounding, I wouldn't care for these small favors. Minutes later, an echo from the living room, "Same breakfast as usual?" I scoffed, yet caved, "Also, get another round of soup dumplings today." Stephen paused, appetite growing, "Huh?" I snapped, storming out of the bedroom to retort, "Appetite? It's because I burned so many calories last night." His expression ran through a range of emotions, finally offering, "You're right, my bad." Hearing some surrender from him was satisfying. I sat cross-legged in the kitchen, waiting for breakfast. After a week, feeling Stephen's care again was both familiar and rare. But now, what was his role in my life? The ex-boyfriend label didn't quite fit. Everything that shouldn't have happened last night, happened. He spoke not a word of getting back together, yet fulfilled his boyfriend duties. Suddenly, I was confused. He returned before long, handed over the breakfast, then headed to the bedroom. As I mulled over how to suggest getting back together without losing face, out he came, pushing a suitcase. I froze, rooted to the spot, like my voice was sealed shut, unable to speak. "I'm leaving. Don't force yourself to finish breakfast if you're not up to it." The door opened and closed, the bang snapping me back to reality. After all this, he can just leave without a care, like nothing happened? I was shaking with anger, spilling my favorite dumplings all over the floor. "Stephen, if you want to leave, just leave. I certainly won't miss you." Recently, my body's been acting strange. I've been hungrier than usual, and let's just say I've gotten a bit rounder. Amy watched me chow down on hot pot, then finally couldn't help but ask, "Joanna, when was your last period?" I frowned, thinking for a while. "I think it was 2 months ago. But it's no biggie, my cycle's been off for years." Amy stared at me in silence, her expression making me uneasy. "You don't think?" I found it hard to believe. How could that be? "Stephen and I broke up a month ago." "Yeah, just 1 month, and last time we did everything we shouldn't have." I quickly went to buy a test, and seeing those 2 lines left me stunned. 2 lines. Positive. Pregnant. Of course, I know what that means, but I just couldn't connect it to myself. It felt like the sky was falling. Pregnant with my ex's kid? What kind of mess is this? Amy suggested, "Even though you 2 broke up, he's still the dad. You should tell him, right?" I recalled how he left without looking back a month ago, and it made me mad. Why should I tell him? He's probably with someone new by now, right? What if he accuses me of trying to trap him with the baby? Amy was at a loss for words and sighed, "Don't worry. Your taste in men can't be that bad." Originally, I was sure I couldn't keep the baby, since I couldn't give it a proper family. But thinking of Steven's handsome face, I hesitated. Those good genes seemed too precious not to keep in our family. Torn with indecision, I texted my mom at midnight, "I'm pregnant." But I accidentally sent it to Steven instead. Oops. Tried desperately to retract it, but it was too late. Now I just had to wait for his reply, feeling my heart race with nerves and oddly, a bit of hope. I watched the typing bubble come and go, repeatedly. Finally, after 10 minutes, he sent 2 words, "Is it?" Seeing his questioning words made me almost explode with anger, so I called him. He seemed busy since it took a couple of seconds to answer. "Steven, what do you mean? We broke up just a month ago." There was a pause on the other end before he replied, "It's already been a month? Then I'll come back tonight." I was stunned. "What do you mean? I'm not blackmailing you with the baby." I know," he chuckled softly. "It's my mistake. I stayed away too long." I bit my lip, falling silent. This guy could make me angry in just a few words, yet could calm me down just as quickly. "Wait for me to come back." I lowered my head and whispered softly, "Okay." After hanging up, I was a bundle of nerves. Judging by Steven's attitude, it seemed like he wanted the baby. Or maybe I was just guessing. He's a CEO, mature and wise, never showing his emotions. I, on the other hand, am just a nobody who's never quite understood him. The 2 years we were together, he was always gentle and caring. Never once did we have a big fight. It only made me feel even less secure. I could never read his thoughts or touch his feelings. He seemed like he'd never truly belonged to me, able to walk away in an instant. That night, Steven did come back, proving he kept his word, as always. I sat quietly on the couch, waiting for him. He walked in his usual sharp suit, still looking every bit the successful businessman, but with a certain weariness in his eyes. I didn't feel sorry for him. "Why do you look half dead? Did you just get out of some mistress's bed?" Steven paused as he swapped his shoes, glancing at me with a hint of helplessness. "Joanna, don't make a fuss." See, there it was again. Whatever I did, in his eyes, was always a fuss. Never once did he say something to make me feel better. I grabbed his collar, intentionally wrinkling it. "How am I making a fuss? A month with no word from you, and if it weren't for this baby, I'd have thought you were gone." He looked down at me, suddenly wrapping an arm around my waist, his tone somber. "I've been too busy." "I'm sorry." Half my anger melted away with that gentle apology. "Oh, Joanna, why are you so spineless?" He pinched my cheek, still mad. "Tell me how you want to punish me." I glared at him. "No, I'm mad at myself. I'm mad for forgiving you so easily, every single time." He chuckled, scooping me up and setting me on the couch. His gaze flickered down to my belly, unexpectedly tender. "I won't go to the office for a while, to stay with you." I was taken aback, happiness bubbling up, though I tried to hide it. "Stay with me? And what are you to me, Steven? We've broken up." A frown creased his brow, a hint of irritation in his voice. "That was just your decision. I never agreed, so it's not valid." In that moment, I saw an unusual streak of stubbornness in Steven. It was like discovering a hidden side to him, leaving me both surprised and intrigued. Is this really the same no-nonsense, cold CEO? This unique side of Steven stirred something in me. I'm in deep trouble. Later, Steven cleaned up and traded his suit for pajamas. He fetched a bucket of warm water and grabbed my feet. "Soaking your feet is good for you." He knelt there, sleeves rolled up, looking more like a perfect partner than a CEO. I stared at his face, a bit lost. The very idea of a CEO rolling his sleeves up to wash my feet would make people chuckle in disbelief. "I'm lazy," I pouted. "From now on, you have to get the water and soak my feet." Steven looked up, a warmth in his eyes I'd never quite seen before. "Gently," he said, "sure." Seeing him so calm and collected, I couldn't resist pushing my luck, and bring me dumplings every day. Okay. And no more disappearing acts, no more playing Houdini. Okay. He paused and explained, I wasn't out of touch, my personal phone is available 24/7. And I didn't disappear suddenly, I even said goodbye before leaving, didn't I? Not texting me on your own counts as being out of touch. Not seeing a living person for a whole month, isn't that disappearing? I protested angrily. Okay, my bad. He said, looking down while using a towel to dry my feet. His eyelashes were long and curled like little fans, making me both envious and jealous. Go lie on the bed and rest. When I didn't move, he raised an eyebrow at me. Want me to carry you? Who needs you to carry? I blushed and dashed towards the bedroom. Suddenly, a hand wrapped around my waist, pulling me into his arms. Even through a thin layer of nightwear, I felt the heat of his body. Running so fast, be careful not to fall. Stephen said without another word, lifted me up, and walked steadily to the bedroom. He placed me down to sit on the bed, propping himself up with his arms, squatting down to look me in the eye. You're not alone anymore, you can't be so reckless like before. It's not good for the baby. My heart ached with a sudden pang, and with teary eyes I looked at him. Stephen, tell me honestly, are you with me because of the baby? He frowned, no. But you were packing to leave before, gone for a whole month. If it weren't for the baby, you'd never come back. Stephen looked at my crying face and unexpectedly chuckled. Fool, I was on a business trip. But? He suddenly got up and opened the closet, almost all filled with my clothes. I didn't understand his point, blinking in confusion. Stephen pointed to a lonely corner, where his few expensive suits hung. I only brought 3 sets of clothes to change, the rest are all in the closet. How can I not come back? I opened my mouth and started crying even harder. You're lying, with all that money, how can you only have so few clothes? A thought stopped my tears abruptly. Stephen is wealthy, but he seems to spend all his money buying clothes for me. I remember one morning, seeing a long string of zeros on his custom suit, feeling a little off balance. That night, I pretended to be drunk, wailing around him, it's not fair. Why does one of your suits have 5 zeros, while I can buy 3 pieces for $100? Stephen was helpless and amused, calmly watching my meltdown from the sofa. Once I calmed down, he got up to hug me and said, from now on, my money will be for buying clothes for Joanna. At that moment, he was so tender it was unbelievable, and my heart softened completely. Thinking of this, I felt a little guilty, and avoided looking into his eyes, acting sheepishly. Stephen, be honest, do you find me annoying? He nodded without hesitation. You. I was furious and pushed him away. Suddenly he caught my hand, leaned in close, his warm breath tickling my ear, but I like it. His breath was so hot it made my face flush. All right, let's take that as the cold CEO's way of sweet talking. Stephen promised to stay at home with me, and he actually didn't go to the office for a whole week. The bossy CEO turned into a homebody. It was hard not to love the change. Though he wasn't at the office, there were many video meetings, he kept busy, but he made a great effort to stay with me and I could see that. In the afternoon, I had just finished drawing an illustration when the doorbell rang. Nobody should be visiting me at this hour. I got up to open the door and found a stunning woman in professional attire with big waves standing outside. The woman was startled, her smile froze at the corner of her mouth. Hello, may I ask if Stephen is here? I didn't want to answer, even less wanted to make way, just looked at her warily. The woman finally reacted. I'm Jane, his secretary, here to deliver departmental contracts. Does a secretary need to be a hot beauty? I turned away, my voice muffled. Stephen, your beautiful secretary is here. Stephen responded, walked out, glanced at me in confusion, and upon seeing Jane's ultra-short skirt and delicate makeup, frowned instinctively. He took the contract and said plainly, if there's nothing else, you can leave. Jane hesitated, looking back frequently as she left. Didn't expect Stephen to have such good taste, with all company female employees having angelic faces and devilish figures. I muttered jealously. He glanced at me. Jealous? Of course not. I turned my head. Oh, so, should I personally drive her back since the company's so far? Stephen, don't you dare. I rushed over, jumped up, and clung to him. He quickly supported me, a bit scolding, be careful not to fall. I wrapped my arms around his neck, giggling, I trust you'll definitely catch me. He didn't put me down, instead carried me to the walk-in closet. I glared at him, what for? To the office, need to change clothes. Why are you in my closet then? His lips curved into a smile, and his eyes, like peach blossoms, were alluring, taking you to inspect, see if I've been a gentleman in the company. That's a good idea, I'd strike a pose fitting of the reigning queen, suppressing those cunning beauties' momentum. Trying to tempt him at home, that's something I can't tolerate. Stephen acted as the driver, taking me to the city's bustling commercial area. As soon as I got into the company, I let go of Stephen and wandered off by myself. Didn't see many flashy beauties, looks like that Jane was just an exception. After getting tired, I headed to Stephen's office to wait for him, and when I pushed the door open, I was stunned. Can someone tell me, who's that influencer face sitting in Stephen's chair? My gaze darkened, a feeling I couldn't explain rose in me. The influencer stood up, walked over, and when she saw me blocking the door, she rudely bumped past. I staggered back a bit. Jane hurriedly came over to support me. Are you okay? Why did you confront her? You can't afford to. I immediately sensed something off. What do you mean? Hesitated, Jane finally confessed. She's Stephen's first love, pursued for years with no luck. She used to be an internet celebrity but recently went bankrupt. Not long ago, Mr. Stephen went on a month-long business trip to establish an MCN subsidiary, supposedly just to sign her. My heart skipped a beat, like something shattered inside me. Even though I knew I couldn't fully trust Jane's words, I still felt uneasy. In my relationship with Stephen, I've never felt secure. It's not just because he's the CEO, there's another reason. I know there's truly someone from his past, his first love. When I first moved into his house, I found a few dresses in the closet that weren't my size. I've kept this to myself, hinting at him a few times, but got no answers. So, is this first love her? When Stephen returned from a meeting with the department manager, I was spacing out on the couch. The manager spotted me and approached, annoyed. Ma'am, you can't just come and go in Stephen's office. Please leave. Jane, how could you let just anyone in? I snapped back to reality, giving him a bitter glance. That woman can sit in his office chair, and I can't even be in his office without getting scolded? Jane gave me a passing glance, looking awkward. This lady is, she came with Stephen. I locked eyes with Stephen, curious about what identity he would give me in front of his subordinates. Lover, girlfriend, or just a friend? Stephen sat in his chair, casually flipping through contracts, not even looking up. It's fine, Joanna can come and go from my office as she pleases. I turned around at his response, meeting his gaze. He gave me the privilege but didn't confirm my identity. I'm not sure if I should be happy or sad about my current situation. Joanna, come here. I walked over to him. He wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me onto his lap. Jane and the manager, flustered, quickly left the room. On the contracts, I saw a picture of a social media influencer. This is the first influencer our company signed with. What do you think, Joanna? I opened my mouth, but my throat felt dry. I couldn't make a sound. After a while, I nodded, forcing a response. Why so distracted? He tilted his head to look at me, startling me, and I quickly turned away. After a moment, I put on a fake attitude, playfully saying, why did you sign her? She's not even that pretty. What caught your eye? You're looking at just the face, so shallow. Her name's Carrie. She didn't get popular just because of her looks. She has millions of followers, very well known. If I wasn't so shallow, if I didn't care about looks, how would I have noticed you in the first place? I turned to glare at him, accidentally brushing my lips across his nose, freezing both of us. Joanna. His voice turned a bit husky, his eyes dark and intense. Me? I blinked nervously. Stephen lowered his head slightly, moving closer to me. With a bang, the door suddenly burst open, startling me, making me bury my head in his chest, embarrassed. Carrie stood at the door, eyebrows raised, teasing. I must admit, I didn't expect the ice-cold CEO to get all cozy in his office. Carrie. Stephen interrupted, a hint of anger in his tone. Carrie snorted, hurry up, everyone's waiting for you to eat. The sound of her heels faded away before I lifted my head from Stephen's chest. He frowned at me, making me feel uneasy. Well, what's wrong? I stammered. He pretended to be troubled. Nothing, just someone weighs too much and made my leg fall asleep. Me? I'm not heavy. I'm just a standard weight. This dinner was a welcome party for signing Carrie. By the time Stephen and I arrived, the room was full, with only 2 seats left, separated by Carrie sitting in the middle. I didn't dare look at Stephen, didn't want to guess his reaction. In the past, I would have made a fuss. But not in front of his first love. I'm afraid of a result I can't handle. Stephen glanced at Jane, who quickly got up and moved. He pulled me to sit, while Carrie sat on his other side. Carrie stood up, opened 2 bottles of liquor, handing one to Stephen. No problem if we drink from the bottle, right? Stephen's face showed no interest. I'm not drinking. What, after all these years, have you forgotten how? His eyes swept over me before he said, I've got a lazy cat at home that needs taking care of, can't afford to mess up drinking. My heart skipped a beat. Was that cat me? I didn't see it. Turns out Stephen's become a real family man, Carrie said, her words carrying an unclear meaning as she drank from her bottle. Stephen frowned slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but stayed silent. Under the table, he suddenly reached out and gently grabbed my hand. A warmth spread through me, and his touch eased all my insecurities. Carrie got tipsy and started causing a scene when we were leaving. Stephen, is your heart made of stone? So many years and you never cared for me, she suddenly lunged, grabbing his collar. Stephen. I became uneasy, tugging at his sleeve, softly saying his name. He gave me a reassuring look, frowning as he pushed her away. You're drunk. Carrie, wearing high heels, lost her balance and fell into his arms, refusing to let go. I'm drunk. I'd rather stay this way and never wake up. She clung to him like an octopus, impossible to shake off. Suddenly, I felt extremely anxious because I noticed a flicker of hesitation in Stephen's eyes. Sure enough, he turned to me, Joanna, head home first. I'll bring Carrie home and come find you afterward. I was stunned for a moment. You're taking her home? He looked at me, his gaze deep, and sighed, Joanna, trust me, okay? I bit my lip, saying nothing, and finally gave in to his gaze, nodding with difficulty. Let Jane go with you. I'll wait at home. I forced a smile, knowing it probably didn't look much better than crying. All right, stay home and be good. I'll be back soon. That night, I stood on the balcony, watching the city of A from night till dawn for the first time. He never came back that whole night. In the morning, I called Jane. Her voice sounded a bit confused. I went home early last night. Stephen's not back yet? That can't be. I said nothing and hung up. 2 hours later, I packed up 2 suitcases and left our large apartment in the city center. Whether or not something happened between them, I no longer care. I'm just tired of these uncertain days, relying on a man for security. Like a canary in a cage, turning into someone I don't recognize. I almost forgot, I'm a graduate of a prestigious art college, where I once sold an illustration for a 5-figure price right after graduation. I've never been bad, just gradually lost myself under his aura after being with him for so long. Amy helped me move into a rented apartment. I started reaching out to old clients and posted on Twitter that I was now open for illustration commissions. The response was great. I booked up my schedule for a month and embarked on my full-time illustrator journey. Steven nearly blew up my phone with calls. It's hard to imagine such a composed and mature man acting so crazy. I didn't block his number, but I didn't answer it either. Until today, when I accidentally answered a call while drawing on my iPad. There was a long silence on the other end, then his deep, hoarse voice came through. "Joanna, I miss you." My hand paused in its movement. I was suddenly lost for words. "Don't ignore me. There's nothing with Carrie. I can explain everything that happened." "Yeah," I whispered. "I always believed you, but Steven, I don't want to live like before. I can support myself." "Okay, I understand." After a moment, his reply came light as a whisper. An ache tightened my chest. A successful man like him, with women lining up for his attention, wouldn't cling on. Once things were clarified, it meant I would truly lose him. That night, I went downstairs to take out the trash, only to be stunned when I opened the door. Steven walked right in, looking around as if he owned the place. "Nice house. But why should you care?" I muttered. "I'm done with the old life. Being rich isn't all that fun." "What, a big boss came all this way just to show off?" "So, I'm moving in." I was startled, then noticed the suitcase outside the door. He really brought himself and his luggage over? I was a bit annoyed. "I'm different from you. Joanna stayed at my place for 2 years, now it's my turn. Got a problem?" I stared at him, speechless, feeling deflated like a burst balloon. How did he become so petty? The icy, distant CEO I knew seemed to have vanished. "Suit yourself." I shot him a sharp look and slammed the bedroom door shut. A knock came a while later. I flung the door open to find Steven in a bath towel, his hair wet. My face flushed with embarrassment. "What are you doing, half-dressed at night?" "Sleeping," he replied, lifting the blanket on my bed and sliding in. "But it's my bed." "You've got only one bed, can't have me on the floor, can you?" I opened the closet, muttering, "Then I'll sleep on the floor." Suddenly, an arm wrapped around my waist. I was hoisted effortlessly into his embrace. Steven's voice was a low, magnetic purr. "Relax, stop fussing." Embarrassment made me struggle to free myself. He let go, got out of bed, and started making up a spot on the floor with some blankets. "Stay put," he said. Watching him settle himself on the floor, I bit my lip and muttered, "You don't need to do this." "Yeah, 'cause I'm really doing it for no reason." I was puzzled. "Then why do it at all?" Lying back, arms behind his head, he said lazily, "Like I said, doing it for no reason." "Humph, whatever." I turned over and lay down. In the middle of the night, as I got up to use the bathroom, I stumbled over Steven's long leg stretched out by the door, landing on him. A soft grunt escaped him. "Heavy," he croaked. "Too bad I didn't crush you to death." I snapped, fuming. He chuckled, pulling me into the covers. "What are you doing?" "I thought you wanted to join me in bed," he teased. "No. I was just going to the bathroom." He couldn't help but laugh, finally letting me go. On my way back, he looked pitiful, all squished in the corner, softening me up. "Fine, you can sleep on the bed." He didn't hesitate, hopping in and wrapping an arm around me, chin resting on my head. "Sleep." The next morning, Steven insisted on taking me to work. Holding my iPad, I refused. "You've got your office, and I've got illustrations to finish. We're both busy." He watched silently, then chuckled softly. "Joanna's a professional with career. An independent woman." I brushed past him toward the desk, intentionally bumping him. "Absolutely." Unexpectedly, he flopped onto the couch, cheekily saying, "Seeing how accomplished you are, you can support another person." I'll just relax and stay home. Stunned, I challenged him, no way. Why turn into a freeloader? Stephen, with legs propped up, looked far too at ease. Remember I kept you like a canary? Now that you're capable, you can keep me. I glared, it's not like that. Stephen was undeniably handsome, otherwise, I wouldn't have fallen for him despite everything. Whatever, it's not my company anyway. Frustrated, I got back to my artwork. Later, Amy stopped by, eyeing Stephen curiously. You guys made up? We're not back together, Stephen interrupted. Just Joanna sponsoring me. Nearly choking on my saliva, I gasped. Joanna supporting an executive? Stephen, don't mess around in front of Amy. I stormed over to thump him. He just laughed, not dodging. Amy fled, exclaiming, just punish me by law, no need for such dog food. I shot him another glare. It's your fault. Yeah, you're right again. And thus, I accidentally became Stephen's sugar daddy, though I never benefited from this arrangement. Apparently, I was responsible for his expenses now. I only give him $100 each day for groceries and cooking. That money's just enough for regular meals. But every time he manages to whip up a whole feast. At the dinner table, I'm blown away again. How much did this whole spread cost? $99, he says. There's even some left. Don't take it back, let it be my running away fund. I ask, so, how much were these 5 big abalones? Not much, he says. Just the last few left at the seafood market. The boss sold them to me cheap for 20. And this huge plate of sea cucumbers? How much? Oh, these aren't fresh anymore, just 50. And those 2 steaks? That meat was almost going bad. The boss gave them to me for free. Then this bowl of bird's nest? That must have cost a bit, right? Is that bird's nest? Joanna, you got it wrong. Just some cheap, regular white fungus. I say, today I learned what it means to lie through your teeth. Stephen puts down his chopsticks and looks at me a bit hurt. When will you introduce me to your friends? You're my sugar mama, but I want to fit in with your crew. Did Stephen take the wrong medicine today? Suddenly role reversing? What you're saying, those used to be my lines. Stephen was always so busy before, always networking during meals. He never had time to introduce me to his friends. Back then, I didn't feel secure. Always thought he wasn't that invested in me. But now? Tables have turned, it's him being all anxious in the relationship. I snort, well, it depends on how you perform, taking good care of me and all. Before I can finish, I feel something's off, 'cause Stephen's looking at me with a weird expression. He gives me this ambiguous smile. Oh, so that's what Joanna means. I'll exceed expectations on that task. I'm mortified. No, that's not what I meant. Early morning, Stephen crawls into bed and whispers in my ear, get up, the sun's already shining. I peek through a barely open eye. Bull, the sun's not even up yet. By the time I get into his car, I'm still half out of it. Where are we going? The office. I glare at him, I'm not your employee. Why are you taking me to work? He suddenly slams the brakes, turns and looks at me, eyebrow raised with a light chuckle, I'm a kept man now. Aren't you worried some other woman might steal me if you don't keep an eye on me? Humph, can't this guy just say he wants to be with me? Oh. I turn my head away, ignoring him. I don't want to enter the company alongside Stephen, so I leave him behind on purpose. As I reach the entrance, 2 sluggish security guards suddenly straighten up and give me a deep bow. Stunned, I think, impressive, even the security guards at big companies are this polite? Inside, last time's department manager spots me and quickly comes over, frowning. I'm startled, thinking he's gonna be rude and kick me out again. But with an exaggerated smile, he says, why not give us a heads up if you're coming? We could have prepared, otherwise, it seems we're neglecting you. Has this guy gone nuts? Even Jane's waiting by the elevator, dressed in a knee-length skirt, quite conservative. She respectfully ushers me to Stephen's office. Wasn't I told I couldn't just walk into Stephen's office? I stop in my tracks. The manager hastily apologizes. Last time I didn't recognize you. Feel free to come and go. There's nowhere in this company you can't enter. There is, I say firmly, cutting him off. The men's restroom. Ignoring his surprised look, I head straight into the office. Jane stands by, pouring tea. I can't help but ask, did everyone in this company lose their minds today? Why is everyone acting so weird? Jane looks at me with envy. Yesterday, Stephen shared your photo with the entire staff. He told everyone to remember your face and treat you as the boss lady. I'm floored, didn't expect Stephen would do that. He noticed every little thing that bothered me. I don't like women around him dressing too revealing, and he changed Jane's dress code immediately. Don't want to be his sugar mama? Then he flips the script, wants me to keep him, a CEO willing to play the kept man. Don't want constant jealousy? He declares my status loudly across the company. A big boss would go that far for me? I suddenly feel very secure inside. I touch my belly gently, eyes full of motherly affection. I believe Stephen will make a great husband and even better dad. A life with the three of us sounds pretty nice. Lost in thought, the door swings open, and I greet him with a bright smile. Stephen, let's stop the bickering. Let's be good to each other from now on, okay? Stephen is momentarily taken aback, then beams widely. Jane stands nearby, shocked. Oh no, she's seen the ice-cold CEO smile like a fool. Won't she get fired for seeing this? The next week is the most relaxed since being with Stephen. His team and friends know about me now, and he openly invites me into his world, holding my hand and pulling me along. I hang around his office every day. While he deals with serious company stuff, I sit nearby sketching. Side by side, without getting in each other's way. One day, Stephen goes to a morning meeting, leaving me alone in his office. The door opens, and I look up to see Carrie leaning against the doorway, watching me. I get a bit dazed, nearly forgetting about this ex. Having grown up with Stephen, it's only fitting she'd want to check out the boss lady. She plops down without any formality. Did Stephen ever explain that night to you? I've never asked about that night, 'cause I trust Stephen. He's got a strong moral compass, never the type to cheat. After dropping me off, he went back to the old house. His family was back in town. He found out last minute. I frown, puzzled why Carrie's telling me all this. Carrie chuckles, abruptly changing the subject. You're 2 months pregnant now? It'll start showing soon. Even if Stephen acknowledges you publicly, have you thought about why he still hasn't taken you to meet his family? Her question leaves me speechless. I can't answer. Wake up. This is the real world, not a fairy tale. Stephen wouldn't fall for a Cinderella. You're still young. Terminate the pregnancy, you still have time to start fresh. I remained silent, unmoving for a long time. I realized way too late that I still know nothing about his family. I collapsed onto the couch, feeling so overwhelmed I could hardly breathe. Later that night, when we got back to our rented place, we were both exhausted. He lay on the couch, rubbing his temples. Joanna, come here. I hesitated for a moment but still went over and snuggled into his chest. Stephen, do you really want to give me a place in your life and make me and the baby happy? Of course, he said with a smile, gently pinching my nose. Then take me to meet your parents. His hand paused, his face seemed a bit off, and he turned away from me. Joanna, there's no rush for that. My heart kept sinking. I took a deep breath and began to convince myself, it's not that he doesn't love me or care about me. He's just too busy. I forced a light-hearted smile. It's okay, if you're too busy, let's cancel our weekend trip and go meet your parents abroad instead. He gave me a long look and stayed silent. Neither of us spoke again, and the room felt suddenly weird. His breathing grew heavy, and he sighed, Joanna, just wait a little longer. His words made my heart drop to the floor. I scoffed, wait longer? The baby's almost 3 months. Do you want me to walk around with a belly while people whisper that the baby is fatherless? Joanna. He stood up and pulled me into his arms, trying to soothe me. It's just not the right time yet. After all these 2 months of pregnancy hardships, is not the right time all I get in return? Stephen, what do you take me for? Fuming, I pushed him away. Stephen, either take me to meet your parents tomorrow, or we're done. If your family doesn't want this baby, mine will. I slammed the door into the room. It was a long while before Stephen still hadn't come in. When I opened the door, I found out he was already gone. My heart felt like it was twisted and aching. I didn't understand why he wouldn't take me to meet his family at this point. I couldn't sleep all night, got up early the next day, and opened the door to take out the garbage, then froze on the spot. Stephen was standing right outside. He looked exhausted, hair a mess, not sure how long he'd been there. Why? Aren't we going to meet my parents? Let's go. He grabbed my hand, and I couldn't help but follow him. We reached the elevator when I realized I was still in my strawberry pajamas. I should go change clothes first. No need, they won't mind. Stephen didn't care, pulling me along. The car drove out of the city and stopped after a long time. As he opened the door, I saw we had arrived at a cemetery. My heart skipped, feeling a rush of bad premonition. He led me inside to 2 tombstones, looking somber. Mom, Dad, I'm here to see you. I froze, staring wide-eyed, like a fool. It wasn't until Stephen squeezed my hand that I came to, softly calling out, Uncle, Aunt. Suddenly, he slipped a ring onto my finger, making it cold to the touch. His gaze was gentle. It's time to change what you call them. With eyes brimming with tears, I whispered, Mom, Dad. We sat in front of the gravestone, leaning on each other. Stephen told me his parents lived abroad, and 3 years had passed since they died in a plane crash. Their biggest regret was that, despite his career success, he was always alone. Carrie, his childhood friend, grew up with him and was favored by his parents. He tried fulfilling their wish by being with her, but he couldn't go against his heart, and they broke up in less than a month. Out of guilt, he started a subsidiary to sign her for one last bit of compensation. Stephen ruffled my hair, softly. I stood here for 3 hours after breaking up with Carrie, seeking their forgiveness for being an unfilial son. After meeting you for the first time, I came here again for 3 hours, telling them I'd found someone I liked. I wouldn't be alone anymore. When I found out you were pregnant, I was in a meeting. You should have seen the look on those old guys' faces. Later rumors spread that I'd gone crazy that day, taking calls and meetings and smiling like an idiot. I was thrilled, beyond words. I thought I'd wait until you were 3 months along to bring you here. The first 3 months are unstable for the baby. I didn't want them to end up with false hope. Hearing that, my heart ached too. Stephen gently patted my head, speaking tenderly, to ensure my darling and our little one don't misunderstand, I brought you here ahead of schedule. I wanted my 2 treasures to be forever happy. Finally, I couldn't hold back, wrapping my arms around his neck and sobbing hard. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have misunderstood you. I shouldn't have been so dramatic. Stephen, I'm so awful. He chuckled through his tears, lightly stroking my back. No, you're my sweetest Joanna. I looked up, tears and snot making me a mess. Embarrassed, I still stared at him intently. Stephen, though I'm not perfect, and I get jealous and needy, I promise you this, I love you. He was taken aback, hugging me tightly as a wetness landed on my shoulder. I love you too, very much.